Good day, folks, or night, or afternoon, whatever time it is that you're listening to this. I appreciate you. Hi, I'm your host, 3, and this is the Personal Details Podcast. In this podcast, I sit down with a friend of mine and more. All of my guests have some kind of, we share something in my lifetime or in their lifetime, or they've been referred to me by one of my great friends. I want to say thank you in advance to my guest for taking her time out to share her personal details with you and with me. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great one. I will realize my own worth when I accept certain conditions in my life are like shoes. At some point, they just don't fit me. How long have you been on hold on one of the things that that is not working in your life in your best interest? Things that are not fulfilling, things that are no longer productive. How long are you going to deny yourself your feelings and your power in order to meet the demands and expectations of others? How long are you going to overdo, overgive, overindulge, trying to convince yourself and others that you are worthy? Perhaps today is a good day, as any other, to let go of others and grab on to yourself. Perhaps today is the day that you will find the courage and the strength to start being worthy. Until today, you may not have even realized that you can do in one day what you have avoided doing for so many days. Just for today, take every opportunity you have to let go of thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, ideas, and people standing in the way of your desire to stand squarely in your worthiness. The affirmation is, today I am devoted to reclaiming my self-worth. Today, I am devoted to reclaiming my self-worth. Please say it with me. Today, I am devoted to reclaiming my self-worth. Thank you. So I started with a little warm-up to do a sound check with my guest and listen to her response. Now you already know it's just about to get even more interesting as we listen to this episode. What's something you like to put in your tea?
I mean, I don't really like tea, but um, I guess milk and sugar are the things that I would put in tea if I drank it.
Welcome to the Crystal Gem Zone. In today's spotlight, we have Amethyst. The amethyst crystal's properties are deeply connected to the third eye chakra, the center of spirituality and intuition, and the crown chakra. The crown chakra governs our connection to the universe. When working with the amethyst crystal, the healing properties bring peace, relaxation, and spiritual awareness into your life. You will begin to understand why amethyst is one of the most popular and sought after crystals in the world. The color of amethyst is associated with wine transfigured into Christ's blood in the sacrament of Mass. By wearing amethyst crystal jewelry, carrying the stone with you, and adding it into your space, you can create internal and external environment of peace and relaxation, no matter where you are or what you're doing. Thanks for listening to today's Crystal Gem Zone. Now, let's get on to the show.
You know you're from the Caribbean when you get these things in your house. Flower, more flower. The old botanical gardens gone. Rum, more rum. The old flopping rum shop. Ice cream bowl, butter bowl. We don't get rid of nothing. You must gotta get roti pan. And a whole lot of plastic bag for garbage. Yeah, I thought I did done. I ain't done. I just start. Every Caribbean house get one of these. A cabinet full of glass. And you can't even use them. Then they get one set stupid argument.
No lies told here. I was talking to someone and I was like, well, in case you didn't understand him, what he said was every Caribbean household has this. Flowers, fake flowers, real flowers, flowers over the entrance, flowers in the living room, flowers everywhere. And then we have butter bowl, like, crock, country crock butter bowl. Is not margarine is in there. You know what's in there? Anything else but. We have to have a pot, especially for cooking curry or roti. And then, of course, you have the china cabinet. The china cabinet and the glass that nobody uses. So that's what he said. And then next we have the couch with the plastic that you cannot sit on. And if you're really, 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 really into what is in the house, is a room or an area with rug and a china cabinet and flowers and a couch with plastic on it, all in the same room. So guess what? Nobody's using that house. No lies told here. This was from one of the Facebook pages, a Facebook post from Key Marley. So, yeah, I thought that was funny. From Colors TV. Seriously, things Caribbean people have in their house. What do you have in your house? What culture are you from? And what's something that you have that you just can't use, and it's just there, it's just ornament, and if you dare touch it or break it, you know you're in trouble. Hit me up, leave me a message. Bye. My hope is to bring you guests that will help you build your personal toolkit, especially in this time of COVID. So without further ado, we're going to get into our guest. Here we go. Welcome to the Personal Details Podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Three. Thank you so much for having me. I am Dr. Danielle. I am a clinical psychologist here in New York City, based in Brooklyn, and working at LK Wellness Services. Thank you again for having me.
Very nice. Thank you very much for being here. Long time coming. I definitely wanted to do this for a while. So, clinical psychologist, can you expand a bit?
Sure, I'll try to keep it into a nutshell and not bore you to death with the details. Um, but a clinical psychologist is someone who has a PhD or a PsyD. Um, and I won't go into the difference between the two, but essentially, I work with private practice clients. So I work with people who are dealing with depression, anxiety, and a variety of other psychological disorders. And that's essentially what a clinical psychologist does. Some people might teach, engage in research, or they might do like clinical assessments with intellectual batteries, determining if a person is developmentally or intellectually disabled, by doing like IQ testing and that sort of thing. So you can do a few things as a clinical psychologist.
See, and that was not boring. I learned something new today. I
All right.
did I did hear about PsyD, but not to get into the technical. Um, just for the folks, and because I'm interested too, is what's your cultural background and makeup?
Sure. So I was born in Guyana, South America. So I consider myself Caribbean, even though I know some people might argue the technicality on it. We share a lot of the cultural experiences of the Caribbean islands. And I came here to Brooklyn when I was 11. So,
Wow.
I had a strong upbringing and foundation in Caribbean lifestyle, and of course, parents are still very much Caribbean. So, if you are in a Caribbean household, you're definitely following Caribbean rules and culture. So yeah, that's been really important to me and really a part of who I identify as.
Very nice. Yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking about being a clinical psychologist. Do you get to treat patients that share any of your background?
Yeah, what's been really nice working at LK Wellness in East Flatbush is that a lot of my clients are of Caribbean descent. So we are able to connect on things that if I had not been born in Guyana or been around a lot of Caribbean culture, it would have been hard to identify with. And I think because we share that common thread, we're able to connect in a way that is different and definitely meaningful to the work that we do. So it's been nice. I work with Haitian clients, St. Lucian clients, people from St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad, Jamaica, Tortola. Just,
Wow.
yeah, just
See, I love it. Okay.
been really
I'm
nice.
excited only because so this month I'm going to feature, I believe, three clinical psychologists.
Oh, wow.
And you guys are all different.
Uh-huh.
And the thing about it is the cultural, like more and more, I'm starting to see that there are people out there for people of color, for people from different cultural backgrounds to be able to go to. And it's helping break down that whole stigma of like going to someone and probably thinking that you're not going to have somebody that can understand you, because what one person said to me, if you told the person you saw your aunt who passed away came to you in a dream, they might admit you, whereas someone from your cultural background will be like, okay, let's explore that, because they might understand a little bit more of the culture. So that just, you said Tortola, you said, yeah, family, Caribbean family, all up in there.
Yeah, and I want to address that because I think that it's so important, particularly in the Black and Brown communities, that therapy was once, in its initial phases, really for people that were rich and people that were white, right? And now it's definitely expanded to include a lot more people. But I think that the stigma and the old stereotypes about it are still very much present. And hopefully with like the increased training around diversity, equity, and inclusion, psychologists in general or therapists, mental health counselors, etc., do know that there shouldn't be a rush to admit or pathologize experiences, right, and to have that conversation. um, so hopefully that's the case and that's the trend. But even though there are more people of color as clinicians, there's not enough, right? So
No,
there's a wait list for me and my colleagues because there's so many people that want to have a person of color as a therapist. So it's been rewarding and also like really hard to meet the demands.
that's a common thread I'm hearing as well. And I also was trying to look for one in New York City, and it was hard. I did find Philly, I found maybe Atlanta, but New York, it's still hard to find people because she wanted someone, yes, of a certain cultural background, but also to understand. Like she wanted maybe if they did Reiki or hypnotism or things like that. That seems very hard to find. So I can totally
Mhm.
agree with that.
You're going down a whole different path, right? So there's regular traditional psychology, and then there's psychology that's more off the beaten path. And
Hmm.
like, thinking about Reiki, indigenous work, which is
Hmm.
something that LK focuses on, is a little bit different than the traditional. ways of doing that. Yeah.
So definite. Okay, I've heard LK Wellness, and I want to get into that one. So please explain to us the services you offer.
LK Wellness is a private practice, a group private practice that I joined about maybe a year and a half ago, and is currently uh, staffed by only people of color, right? Um, and it's not through exclusion or anything, but I think it's an intentional offering to the community that we're in. And it's been such a wonderful change to work in an environment where people look like you and they understand your background and your experiences. So Beatrice Hyacinth is a LCSW, one of the co-founders, and Dr. Damalia Gibson is also another co-founder. So the work at LK Wellness is really focused on the holistic experience of the client, and
Mhm.
also an indigenous focus on mental health and what that means. So some of the things that we focus on are, very land based, right? um, Typically we depend on our relationships with people and connections with people, and in the past year that has definitely been a strain to maintain because of COVID. So, focusing on land, right? Connecting with water, finding your breath and connecting with air in that way. Going to the park, or, gardening and feeling the soil, going outside, feeling the heat of the sun, connecting with those elements, connecting with our ancestors has been really helpful to think about too. A lot of the things that we've experienced in the last year in terms of like racial trauma, and just the Black Lives Matters movement. Not that it started in the last year, but definitely reached a quite a height and intensity. Our ancestors have been through this, right? So calling on that generational ancestral wisdom to ensure that we check in with people that have been there before and recognize that we're not alone, and also honing in on community, right? Speaking with people of color about their experiences and saying, I see you, I hear you, and I'm here for you as we continue to go through this struggle of finding equity in a society that just wants to fight against it.
Well said. Very well put. Yeah, you totally summed up. Yeah, this year, last year has been about that. I love that you mentioned connection to the land. So important. Like, and I think as Caribbean people, if you like, I was thinking of my mother when you were talking, like she gardens. She's up at 5 a.m. and she waters and she makes sure she gardens. And then when the winter hit, I know it was a shift and it was like almost stir crazy, like what to do inside this place all day because she wasn't going out and she's not working. So that just made me think about how important nature is to us to because of our ancestral past. Wow. Ah, you just clicked something in my mind for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm glad that there's something like this. I really didn't know about LK Wellness, so this is great. Um, so with all that comes every day, how do you find a way? And this is also a lot of other practitioners listen to the podcast,
Mhm.
and I'm asking pretty much everyone the same question. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys deal with it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and um, I think it's hard for me to really articulate how it works, right? So if I've got 7 clients in one day, right, and maybe I've got 4 of them in a row with a break, I have to, within that hour, be present with that person and feel what they're feeling and understand and sit with them in whatever they're coming with. And then in 10 minutes, kind of like, you know, get myself together, come back to who I am, and then shift to do it again with another person.
Wow.
So I have to find ways to really be there and then not be there when I'm not with the client. So sometimes it's about positioning of my body so that the energetic exchange isn't too much and like hitting me on the trunk of my body.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
Sometimes it's like, spraying some sage, right, and brushing myself off with a piece of cloth or tissue, again connecting with the land.
I love it.
um, Eye contact, we're told that we need to stare people in their eyes and maintain it, but sometimes, you take what the person is giving to you and then you look to the floor, right, and you give that energy to the land so that it can hold it for you. So I guess I've been really relying on the land-based techniques of like indigenous work, to really get through it. But I think that, as clinicians, we kind of learn how to switch things on and off, for
Very
sure.
nice. I love that approach. Thank you for being so honest. Because yes, the vicarious, so at work, we often um yes, dealing with other people, you can end up taking on some of their energy and you have to be very careful. And we literally just took a workshop in vicarious trauma. Um and which is the trauma of like that you experience through others or hearing through others can trigger your own, and you know better than I, but that's what I got out of the workshop. um and I that is a real way. That's, if I talk to my group of friends, that's what we say, but you don't hear people say that.
Mhm.
And I think that's really refreshing for people to hear, because yeah, sometimes when I even working from home, my friend just said that the other day, is like, some days I speak to people and I'm energized, and other people I'm drained just on a conversation. And she's like, I'm not even in the same room. And I was like, that just goes to tell you that interacting with each other, period, has its own, effects. Um,
Absolutely.
what would you say to anyone? And I mean, you're still, how long have you been in this work, whether with LK Wellness or before?
So my training formally began in 2014.
Mm,
Um, but I was working at YAI, which is an organization that helps individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities since 2008. So I've been working in the mental health field for quite a bit of time.
yeah,
Yeah.
just about 13 years. Just about. Okay, nice. And so if someone, considering what you know now versus maybe 2008, 9, what are some things that you might um want to advise someone who's coming into this field?
Oh, um, I think what was really helpful for me was to know what my goal was, right? I think that there's a lot of commitment that maybe I didn't know about that was required of being a clinical psychologist, particularly in private practice. That I have to make myself available at the same time every week for clients, right? I didn't think about the fact that, if I wanted to go on vacation, I have to make sure that my clients are taken care of, or they have someone to connect with in case they have an emergency. I love to travel. So I was like, wait, what? This is okay. All right. Okay, now this makes sense. So it's good to have community in that way. Um, I think also, you know, eh, there's so many ways that you can make a living as a psychologist. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think a lot of my colleagues are uncomfortable with wanting to make a living and a decent living um, as a psychologist, right? So I think we're the message is that you're here to help people, so you don't think about what you're getting paid, or you shouldn't charge as much
Mm,
money because
mm,
people need help. And yet, like, when you go to the PCP, and you check your insurance bill and they say it's like $200 for a blood test, right? So like, oh, what is this? Why don't you charge less for this? It's just like an acceptance of it. So I think just knowing what you're worth and knowing what you value, understanding what your purpose is, like who you want to serve, who you want to reach out to. So we do offer a sliding scale, right? For some clients that can't afford it. Right now, LK is working on creating a foundation, a nonprofit, so that we can get grants, so that people wouldn't have to worry so much about being able to afford therapy. So I think, knowing your worth, understanding that this is a journey, and that the destination is worth it if this is something that you truly want, and to find mentors, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to people and connect with them, and share with them how you're feeling, and to ask questions of people who've already been there before.
Okay. Great advice. Great advice, folks. Definitely something we haven't heard on the podcast before. LK Wellness is in Brooklyn. Do you think your cultural background has influenced how you've chosen to work in this field?
I think so. Um, hmm. I definitely think so. I think there's certain things that I can connect with clients in terms of humor, right? So we laugh about the ways that we were raised by our parents, right? And how it kind of differs from the messages that maybe American culture will say, you should raise your kids. Um, the very traumatizing but popular saying of, you know, uh, stop crying before I give you something to cry about, when there was actually a reason to cry. Um, so I think, being able to laugh and engage in that way definitely releases some of the tension, brings some levity to some difficult conversations. Um, and just understanding, like, the different ways that people are thinking. There's when my clients are saying, and that's on period, like I can understand that and what that means, and not just ask them to say, oh, explain that. So being able to connect with like the current culture, and also my Caribbean roots, has been super helpful in working with clients.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Awesome. What are some of the issues um, that, without going into depth, what are some of the issues that are affecting our people, our culture? What are some of the things that come up?
There's so many things. I think what I've been seeing a lot in depression and anxiety.
Mm.
Um, but even more so, I think the imposter syndrome, which for people that haven't heard it before, means that you attribute your successes to luck, or like, some kind of divine thing, but not your own actual ability, and the feeling that you are not supposed to be in certain spaces. And I remind clients, like, yeah, I mean, it's understandable why you feel that way, right? So people of color weren't supposed to be in the boardrooms, right? And they're still very much not. We're not supposed to be in the university classrooms. That's not the way that the society intended us to be. So of course you're going to feel that way, because that's the feeling that was supposed to be generated in the first place. And that it doesn't have anything to do with you as an individual. So really encouraging them to celebrate their accomplishments, and rather than giving it away, and giving away that power and joy to someone else, or to an institution, or just saying like, I'm just a statistic or a token. So that's really come up a lot. Self-esteem issues has been really tough to deal with. Um, not believing that they're good enough, right? And I remind them that the message has been that you haven't been good enough. And that's not just as an individual, it's community wise, it's generational, and unfortunately also ancestral. And then reminding them that despite that, look at all that we've accomplished with this notion that we're not good enough. Imagine the changes that would happen if we did feel like we were good enough. Perhaps the world wouldn't be ready to handle that. Um, and relationship issues. So a lot of like relationship, communication, emotional intelligence issues. So being able to connect with their emotions, identify what they are, and express them without fear of consequence has been something that's been coming up a lot as well.
Wow, this is great. That imposter syndrome, I definitely can say guilty at some times as I've moved through my career. And being generally the only woman sometimes and the only woman of color other times, you
Yeah.
just wonder. And I finally could put it to I finally could explain it because I feel like it's something that I had in my mind, but I just didn't understand the
Mhm.
feeling. So that is definitely, I definitely understand that, but I've also realized that, yeah, I do the work too. Like, I
Yeah.
generally.
We're taking a break and we'll be right back. This podcast is supported by Carefully Made. Carefully Made offers homemade hair and skin products to care for the body, in addition to handcrafted gemstone jewelry personalized to you. You can follow her Instagram at care_fully made or visit her Etsy shop at etsy.com/shop/carefully made. You can also look for her information in our show notes. Again, that's Carefully Made.
Come from hardworking people, so that's not even a thing. So that's definitely something I can identify with. All of that actually. So good to hear that people are saying it because I feel like we also have a tendency to hide, to not air things to others. So I wonder about our community, literally Caribbean community, and how are we taking care of our mental health because it's so like some things are almost expected to keep it quiet and hidden, and it gets to you, especially not being on the island, whatever island you come from. There's a different sense of community, and I think being away, there's if you don't find it, it can really mess with your mental health. As I've gotten more informed and really think about it, so I'm glad that there's something that I can literally tell people about that's out there, because I feel like we also might not know. So I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Um, I forgot. Let's see. And of course, oh, I wanted to know, are you guys doing virtual? I would assume you're offering virtual. Um, I should say, are you offering anything in person these days?
Yeah, I do have a couple of clients that I do see in person, but most of it has been virtual so far. Unfortunately, I don't know if people realize this, but insurance companies are, um, I think, kind of scaling back some of them and saying that, it's not as bad in the pandemic as it was before, so you can go into the office for therapy, but they might still allow you to have telehealth visits with like your PCP or your medical doctors. So there's definitely a difference in terms of perhaps value, and I don't know which way it's leaning, but certainly some of them are saying that some of the clients have to come in person, otherwise they won't pay for the session.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, because you actually could see more people, and they might be comfortable virtually. All right. Hmm.
Mhm.
Um. Okay.
The whole world of secrecy and hidden politics that you just don't know about.
Yeah. Jeez. And money ends up becoming it. Some things that I've heard from people is that the insurance company, um, I do know what they reimburse. I've seen some of the things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how does anyone make a living unless you
Right,
have thousands of people and it leads to burnout?
right.
So that is a definite factor to consider. My goodness. Um,
Yeah, and then there's the guilt, right? So as a clinician, you know that historically people of color um, don't have necessarily the means, right? Not, and this is not across the board, but that the people in the area that I work, that, you know, there may be middle class or lower SES, and they're not able to afford out of pocket services. So if you want to help those people that obviously need your help, then you have to take insurance, right? But then you also have to pay back all of the loans that you have for school. And the only way that you'd be able to do that is to, you know, perhaps take on a bunch of clients, which, you know, it can, you might get resentful, right? That you have to work so hard to pay back this money, or you can get, you know, clients that are paying out of pocket but might not necessarily be the population that you in your heart of
mhm.
hearts want to serve. So it's that tension between making a living or helping people that you want to help, and it's a hard line to navigate.
Wow. Good point there. That is not an easy thing. Um, are there resources that have helped you along the way or that you can recommend for folks who may not be able to afford private practice or even find the therapist or counselor that they want? Any resources?
um I think that New York City Marketplace has been super helpful for me when, you know, in college and I couldn't necessarily afford uh, an insurance, so I needed free insurance. So they definitely help with like Medicaid and Medicare insurances, which a lot of clinicians actually do take and accept. So that can be a resource. Um, I think listening to podcasts as well, you know?
Love it. I agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Listening to podcasts and hearing what people say and what they talk about can be a good way of recognizing that you're not alone, and also picking up some helpful tips that might alleviate whatever you're going through. Reading is also a great way, right? So there are definitely books out there on practically every topic that you can think of that can help with, you know, the things that you're struggling with. Um, Also, I think uh, you know, people sleep on these training programs at universities, right?
Mm.
So we have mental health counselors, social workers, psychologists that are training, and often the universities have their own clinic where they offer low cost sliding scale therapy. So I went to Adelphi University, and their clinic, the lowest amount was $5 that someone could pay per session. Obviously, this requires like pre approval
Right.
and to really demonstrate that you can't afford, you know, maybe the $50 that it would start at. But certainly check in with your local universities and the counseling centers to see if they'll be able to accept you as a client and maybe give you a sliding scale fee.
That is some great advice. And I think of it for like beauty shops and barber schools. They are training and they have lower. You are a wealth of information.
Glad I can help.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, so we're coming to unless there's anything else you want to let people know that are out there. Um, but I do want to offer the opportunity to just shout out anyone that you want to send gratitude to, that has been helpful or your cheerleader in your career or life.
Sure, sure. There is something that I do want to share. It's not probably, it's a self plug. So I have recently, in the last year, started a YouTube channel called Conversations on the Couch with Dr. Danielle. It's on pause right now, but there's going to be a relaunch soon, just because I'm trying to work out like the videographer pieces. But it's a channel that's focused on talking about mental health issues. So you mentioned earlier that there's a certain secrecy or shame and stigma associated with therapy and talking about mental illness. So the channel is, each episode will focus on a different mental health issue and really breaking it down and offering some ideas and tips and resources to address it. And the goal is to have people feel comfortable talking about these things and to feel comfortable enough to take back what they've learned, and hopefully it's a conversation starter with their friends and family. So the more we engage in it, the more comfortable we feel and the less stigma surrounding these issues. So I definitely wanted to throw that in there as a potential resource,
Yeah.
uh, in the coming months once I get that off the ground again.
And once you do, please let me know, and we'll let folks know. I'll definitely mention it to head on over and subscribe to the channel and help elevate it. Mm-hmm.
So in regards to someone that I want to shout out, I want to shout out Dr. Carolyn Springer. So she was my master's. I went to Adelphi for my master's in general psych, and she was my research advisor there. And she was so amazing and so helpful and supportive that I decided that I was going to go back to Adelphi for my PhD. And she was essentially the reason that I chose that particular program. And even though I've graduated, she has been really wonderful and remains a huge source of support, always encouraging me and pushing me to do things that I would typically say, no, I don't think that I should. And she's like, no, you've got this. So it's really great to have her part of my life. And if you don't have a mentor, get one. It is so, I can't stress and emphasize enough the importance of having someone in your corner.
Definitely. And I just wanted to point out that some folks might be thinking Dr. Danielle. It's not a phrase. She is a PhD graduate, which I just wanted to take a moment and celebrate. I know someone that is not my teacher, that is not a professor, that is an everyday person in my circle that I'm like so proud of that. That is actually one of the reasons I was like, I have to get her on here because PhD, getting to that level and knowing someone, seeing them, like I can actually talk to this person, is not something that you usually easily accessible to most folks. So I just wanted to elevate that and just let people know it's possible. There are people that look like us that are doing it. So please keep
Thank
going. Don't stop. We need more. We need more. We need more.
Thank you. I'll keep pushing. I'll keep
Um, okay, so Dr. Springer, anyone else?
My mom, my parents, they've been real good. They've been real good. My brother as well, driving me to Boston and Connecticut and all these places so that I can, go on these internship interviews to get to this point. So my family has been really, really helpful. Beatrice Hyacinth and Dr. Demalia Gibson are the co-founders of LK Wellness, have shown me what it's like, what it could be like to work in a wonderful, warm, loving, caring, supportive environment. They're also pushing me outside of my comfort zone continuously. So definitely appreciative of them as well.
Yay, we celebrate you. Shout out to them as well. And I've been asking people lately what they've been listening to as far as music, or even if it's not music, maybe you listen to books. But
So I know you can't see me right now, but I'm pressing my cheeks because my cheeks are hot with embarrassment. So I really like that song Dynamite by BTS. Now I'm not a part of BTS Army or anything like that, but there's something about that song that when it comes on, I sing it terribly at the top of my lungs and start dancing as if I'm in some like 70s music video.
You know I go wild. Hey, so let's go. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Hey, shining through the city with a little funky song. So I'ma light it up like dynamite. Whoa, bring a friend, join the crowd.
So anything that can get me moving and fill me with joy is really what I'm hoping for to continue with, and definitely that song Dynamite by BTS
yay.
is,
Okay.
is on the playlist at the top of the playlist.
Okay. We're going to add it to the playlist of this podcast. We have a playlist on Spotify and it's called Play the Details. And every time someone comes on and I ask about music or I mention music, I add it to that playlist. So
Goodness. Okay. All
it,
right.
it has a lot of different things. I mean, I like a variety of things from classical to like hot country. You want
Oh, all right.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's in good company.
Very eclectic. Yes.
Um and again, please tell the people how to find you on social media or website.
Sure. So I have a bunch of social media tags. Um, the one that I'm most active on, even though I'm not super active on it either, it's on Instagram, Dr. Danielle Danielle .w, and then there's Conversations on the Couch. It has its own IG handle as well. It's conversations dot on dot the dot couch. And for a website, which I'm hoping will be launched in the next few months, it's convosonthecouch.com. CONVOSONTHECOUCH.com. At Twitter, it's at Conversations09, and YouTube, just search for Conversations on the Couch with Dr. Danielle.
Thank you. So you've heard it, folks, and it will be in the show notes. Most of the things mentioned, the resources, Instagram, all the social media handles, and of course the music featured here today, and a link to the playlist. So thank you very much for all of that. And I want to make sure, is there anyone you follow that you want to shout out at this time?
Yeah. So I really like at so this is a long name. So it's it's at the Brew Henderex psychotherapist. So THE BRUJANDERX dot PSYCHOTHERAPIST.
Okay.
XT. At Dr. Christy Norwood, DrKRISTIENORWOOD. And another one is at Dr. Alfie, DRALFIEE. And finally, at crown.therapy.llc, CROWN period THERAPY period LLC. And they always have great material, great words of affirmation uh, that I like to follow and support.
And we will too. Great.
Thank you so much.
And of course, LK Wellness.
Right. How could I forget? At LK Wellness _. Thank you. You're saving me from getting into trouble.
Okay. Yay. Exciting. Well, this has been fun and educational and enlightening, and I appreciate you being here and sharing your details with the world. Follow Dr. Danielle, and when Conversations with the Coach, when Conversations on the Couch launches, we'll be definitely sure to highlight that as well. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everyone. Be well.
Yay.
We'll be right back. Thanks for listening. This podcast is supported by the author Shakina Shaw. Conundrums Impacting Business Sustainability is available at barnesandnoble.com. Be sure to check it out or gift it to someone you know who's a business owner and needs to start thinking about the 3 areas that impact a business, specifically that cause a business to fail. The book serves to examine these 3 fundamental areas and provide some ways to combat failure. Again, it's Conundrums Impacting Business Sustainability by Shakina Shaw, available at Barnes & Noble. Hi, friends. So we are done, and I hope you enjoyed that segment with our guest, Dr. Danielle. It was a joy and pleasure speaking with Dr. Danielle and seeing her amazing passion for her work, as well as her growth as an individual. So the backstory on how I know Danielle. I met Danielle when she was an undergraduate at St. John's University. Instantly appreciated her because she was Guyanese and I am Kittian from St. Kitts. So there was a cultural connection, I must say, as, you know, when Caribbean people meet each other. And the other connection that we have is that we are both we're both members of the same sorority, SIA, Hermandad de Sigma Iota Alpha Incorporated, SIA for short. So yeah, I know, another SIA. I can't help it. They just happen to be great women doing great things, and we're from the same sorority. So yeah, that's our connection. Shout out to the SIAs in the room, and shout out to Manayoka. So my Caribbean folks, there you have it, right? Somebody to talk to that's not your granny and that's not going to judge you. Go find a therapist if you need one. We can't deal with these details by ourselves. It's just not that time anymore. And we know that there's people out there that sound like us, share our experience, and are down to really help us process all these details of life. So I'm appreciative to my Guyanese sister, Ph.D., no less, right? What a great example for young women coming up to know that you can do this and you can create space where spaces were very limited. I appreciate you, Danielle, for your time, and I appreciate you, the listener, for taking this time. Please do share this episode. Follow me on Instagram. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can go to thepersonaldetails.com and book yourself as a guest. I'm 3. This is a Personal Details podcast. And I'm out. Bye. Until next time.
Very much. Thank you very much, Trisha. Thank you very much. We love you.